All right, everybody. Welcome to day 28 of our study of the Bhagavad-gītā. We entered the final chapter, chapter 18, but we got 3 days to do it because this is the longest chapter in the Bhagavad-gītā. And it's an exciting one. And I realize I'm in a different setting. It looks like I've merged into the Brahmajyoti over here. But I've just been traveling. I'm in Philadelphia for the weekend, and this is what I got. And so here we go. Let's get right into this now. This chapter 18 is called The Perfection of Renunciation. And it kind of summarizes everything, but does it all in a fresh way. And so Perfection of Renunciation, it'll revisit all the themes, the major themes that we've had in the Bhagavad-gītā, especially, the main themes, again, there's the first 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters, and the last 6 chapters. So the main themes are karma. Should one act in the world, embracing their social duties, or are those duties entangling us more in the world? And as a yogi, is it best to just walk away from all of one's worldly duties? Do they tie one down? And 2, jnana, which literally means knowledge. And what is the true distinction between matter and spirit? And in knowing that, how do I disentangle myself? And then the third subject, of course, is bhakti. How does devotion to Krishna, how does it serve as the ultimate solution to all the problems in life? And how does it become the complete fulfillment of the self? So in this final chapter, Krishna brings all these questions to the resolution. He's going to clarify what renunciation truly means, and he's going to guide us to this kind of synthesis, a synthesis of knowledge and action and devotion. They all come together in the Gita. It's the message of the Gita. Know the world for what it is, act in it based in that knowledge, do it all in deep absorption and remembrance and love as a loving offering to Krishna. That's what the Gita is teaching in a nutshell. And so we get that here. The question is renunciation, because that's where we started this whole thing. What should Arjuna do? And so in essence, Krishna is going to say that real renunciation isn't walking away from work, but it's offering one's work, offering one's actions, offering one's social responsibilities, the roles that you play, to Krishna, and trusting in his promise that he's going to make it in a big way at the end, at the conclusion, that he's going to carry all the consequences for that. That won't be on you, Arjuna. So let's go back to connected to what we just read, chapter 17, where Krishna was helping Arjuna see how spiritual practices, whether sacrifice or austerity or charity, they all can be aligned with this metaphysical reality, which was described in the earlier chapters like 13, 14, and 15. How all of these spiritual practices can be aligned with that reality. And the key was purity of motive, that whatever we do should be offered without any selfish intent. And so now, as we enter the 18th chapter, Arjuna is going to raise another essential facet of spiritual life. We've had charity, austerity. What was the other one that I said? Charity, austerity. Anyway, I'm forgetting now. But now he's going to add one more, and that is renunciation, right? And again, that brings us back to the opening of the Gita. Should I fight or should I not fight? Do I renounce my duty as a warrior? Do I renounce action altogether for the purpose of spiritual life? Or do I engage? Does genuine spiritual practice demand that I renounce my worldly responsibilities in order to steady my mind as a yogi? Or is the mind better steadied by engaging fully in those very responsibilities and making them an offering in the spirit of yoga or in the spirit of bhakti yoga? Do I renounce externally? Or do I just renounce the desire behind those actions? And so let's get into it. Texts 1 through 12 will have to do with this question, right? And it begins with Arjuna asking this. He says, "O mighty armed one, Krishna, I wish to understand the purpose of renunciation and of the renounced order of life. O killer of the Keshi demon, master of the senses." Here he's using two words. One is tyaga and one is sannyasa. Both of these words are used to refer to renunciation, but they have a different, even etymology, even in the etymology of the words, we can see that they have a bit of a different meaning. So the term sannyasa means the total external renunciation or setting aside of something. Sam means together or wholly. And niyasa means to lay down something, to set it aside. So sannyasa means to put down something completely, indicating both the action and as well as the desire for the results. But tyaga is a little different. Let me hold up my sign. See that again, that sam it's sun in sannyasa. It indicates completely. And so that means not just renouncing internally, but renouncing externally. Not just renouncing the desire that may motivate an action, but also renouncing the action itself. Whereas tyaga is a little different. Tyaga is the act of letting go or surrendering, but with a more subtle implication that it can refer to an internal relinquishing of one's attachments or the desire for the results of one's action. So ceasing from action altogether, we could call that sannyasa. And forgoing the results of the action, but still acting, we could call that tyaga. Both are renunciation, but one is where you renounce the action as well as the desire, and tyaga is just renouncing the desire. And that's where Krishna's going to be steering Arjuna. I want you to be renounced, but it's the internal renunciation that's important, not just the external. The external, sometimes it's better to do the external action. So Krishna is going to respond like this. He says, giving up the activities that are based on material desire is what great learned men call the renounced order of life, or sannyasa, right? Giving up the activities. And giving up the results of all activities is what the wise called renunciation, or tyaga. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be giving up as faulty. Certain yogis say give up all activities. Yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance, that's what we heard about in the last chapter, right? There's the third one, sacrifice, charity, and penance, or austerity, should never be abandoned. I'll read that again. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty. Being a family man, right? Raising a family, having a job to provide for them, being a responsible person in your social network, that all of these should be given up because they entangle you in the world. Then he says, yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. All of your social responsibilities and the spiritual practices tied to those, you should keep doing that. Now he's going to say, oh, Arjuna, now hear my judgment about renunciation. Oh, tiger among men. Renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of three kinds. So now he's going to go right back into the model that we had in the 17th chapter, where he goes into goodness, passion, and ignorance. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. He's saying even if you're a very advanced yogi, a great soul, you should still be engaged in acts of sacrifice and charity and penance, which are penance maybe is a little different, but there are ways that it's done within household or life. But charity and the types of sacrifice described in the Vedas, here we're talking about the kind of things that people that are engaged in the world do, not the sannyasi. Okay. All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of the result. There's the tyaga. There's the renunciation. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. Very consistent with what was said about charity and penance, etc. in the previous chapter. Prescribed duty should never be renounced. If one gives up his prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action is never leads to the elevation of renunciation. O Arjuna, when one performs his prescribed duties only because it ought to be done and renounces all material association and all attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is said to be in the mode of goodness. So Krishna he essentially just said that if one gives up the action itself, the social engagement, that it could be considered that he's acting either out of the mode of ignorance or the mode of passion, and that the person operating in the mode of goodness continues to engage in the world, but does it letting go of all attachment to the results of the work. Text 10, the intelligent renouncer, situated in the mode of goodness, neither hateful of inauspicious work or attached to auspicious work, has no doubts about work. Right? Because they've let go of everything, they're not held responsible. Right? They're not interested in receiving the fruits of the action, and therefore they won't receive any fruits for it. And then text 11, indeed, it is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities, but he who renounces the fruits of action is called one who is truly renounced. For one who is not renounced, the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such result to suffer or enjoy. When you let go of the desire for the fruits of your actions and you act out of duty without any personal motive, you don't get any karma for it. Krishna's being emphatic about this. Now, texts 13 and 17 tie in with this, and these talk about 5 factors of action that play out in any action that's done. And this is, it's a very interesting, it can be a little difficult to understand when you first come across it. I'm going to read these verses quickly, and then I want to discuss them at length. Let's hear what they say first. Texts 13 and 14 are going to describe that every accomplishment that we do rests in 5 causes, not just one. Sometimes we think, I caused this to happen. Krishna is going to say it's more nuanced than that. So text 13 and 14. O mighty armed Arjuna, according to Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. The place of action, the performer, the senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the Paramatma, the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action. Okay, so he's just saying that anything that's done in this world isn't caused just by you. These 5 factors all play out. And then he goes in text 15 and 16 to essentially to say that if you ignore these and think that I alone am the doer, then you're not seeing the truth. So text 15 and 16, whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech, those are the same categories we heard about in chapter 17, right? Body, words, and mind. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, and speech is caused by these 5 factors. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Okay, and then in text 17, he's going to say that one who acts without this false understanding, this false proprietorship of thinking that I am the cause, with a clear intelligence, they don't become bound even when they're doing all kinds of actions in this world. So text 17, one who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. Okay. Interesting idea here. Now, what I want to do is I want to go through all 5 of these different factors and try to help understand why Krishna is bringing this up and why it might even be relevant in our own life. And before I get started, there's just one thing I want to say is that Prabhupada's translation of these 5 factors, he does it in a philosophical way where the place refers to the body itself and the instruments refer to the senses. I'm going to be using a slightly different translation, you can say, which I feel is a bit more, it leans more to the practical way of putting it. So thinking of the place as the situation that we're in, and rather than speaking of the karanam, as the Sanskrit word, as the senses, thinking of it as the tools that we use in life. Just because I think it's going to make it a bit more easy to follow and apply in life. So both are faithful to the Sanskrit, but just emphasizing different lessons. One is more philosophical and metaphysical, and the other more practical and accessible and maybe applicable. I don't want to confuse things too much. Essentially, we're saying the same things, and I do want to kind of try to understand that other way better. It's just something that I don't understand so well. But I think when you hear what I have to say now, a lot of things are going to start to click about these 5 factors of action. So the first one is called the adhishtanam, or literally the place of action. And so this can mean the situational setup, the context that we land in, the conditions, the resources that are there, the timing, the framework of the field that we commit this action in. Okay. We find ourselves in all kinds of circumstances in this life. We don't necessarily choose them, but we find ourselves in them. And because we find ourselves in them, how fully are we responsible for any action that takes place in that circumstance? And I'll get into this more in a bit. Now, the second is the karta, the performer. So first there's the place, and then there's the performer. Now, this is the one that we generally think is everything, right? I chose to do this. I was the cause. This means that there is an individual who has free will to choose and has their own particular motive. What's going to become important here is that this performer is a cause of the result of an action, but not the cause. There's 5 factors that go into it. Now, the third one is karanam, which we can understand as the instruments, the tools and the faculties that we have in undertaking any action. We have our body and our senses. We have our mind. We have our skills, and as well as external tools that we engage. Our training, all of these things play into it. Now, the fourth one is the endeavor, the effort that we put into it. That this includes practice and repetition and discipline and strategy and persistence, especially that persistence, that determination to get something done, to accomplish a task. And then finally, the 5th factor is called daivi, or daivam, which means the divine factor, that there's certain things that are just out of our control. And even if all the other things seem to fall in place, you never know how something's going to happen. And here, when we say daiva, it means it's in God's hands. It's in divine hands. It's something beyond what we have control over. And so let's I want to use an example that's kind of, I want to take this and put into a modern context, something that we may be more familiar with, but it's very much parallel to what Arjuna's circumstance is. Let's say that there's a police officer, and he shows up on a scene. He was walking his beat or whatever, and he walks right into a situation. And that situation is that there's, let's say, a shooter. Let's say like someone randomly killing innocent people, right? Which is something that unfortunately in the United States happens not uncommonly at all. So he walks into the scene where there's someone just randomly shooting people and killing people. That's the circumstance, right? The officer didn't choose this crime scene, didn't choose to really show up there at that time. He was given this beat to walk that day. You know, he was given the by his superiors, he was given the on this schedule you should be in this area. You know, he didn't choose this outbreak of violence, which is the place or the circumstance. He's been placed there by circumstance, and suddenly there's a crisis that demands his response. Okay, so the place he didn't choose, he just landed in it. Then there's the karta, the performer himself. He's a conscious person endowed with his own free will, with his own idea of ethics and morality, his own willpower in the sense of I choose according to my will. And in this moment, he's got to decide whether to act or not and how he's going to act. Will he pull out his own gun and kill this person? Will he choose not to? Will he walk away from the incident? Will he try but not that hard? You know, these things are in his hands, right? He has the choice. So he's, in that sense, he's the agent, one amongst five. Now, the third one is the instruments, the karanam. He's got his body, he's got his senses, he's got his gun, he's got his skills and training that have gone into this. He's got his badge and his uniform, you know, that everybody's going to be looking at him and saying he's the person meant to do something here. He's got the institutional authority, you know, granted by the government to have the freedom to act even violently in this case. So these are all instruments through which his choice can be carried out. And then there's the cetasa, the effort. He's got to summon his own courage. He's got to steady his own aim. He's got to act decisively. He's got to decide if I'm gonna give it my full effort or not. And then finally, there's this daivam, you could call it the destiny or providence that's beyond his control. He doesn't know how the shooter's going to react. He might think, let's just talk about how all these can play out. And if all five of these aren't in place, no action is going to take place. Now again, the place. He didn't choose it. He just ended up in it. So how can he be held responsible for that action? There's five factors in action, right? Let's say he shoots the shooter and kills them. Now the question could be brought up, is he responsible for killing someone? Should he have to pay a price for it? But the first thing is, I didn't choose to be there at that time. If someone else were there at that time, then they might be held responsible for this. I didn't choose the time or the place or the circumstances. I just landed in it, right? Now, let's look at the third cause, the instruments. He might be judged for shooting and killing the person. He could also be judged for failing to do so. Why didn't you step up and do something? Well, let's say he decided, I will take out my gun. I will aim it at this person and I will shoot. Well, what if the gun doesn't work, right? What if the instruments, right? What if his firearm malfunctions in that moment? Then can he be held responsible for not acting? I chose to act. I aimed the gun. I pulled the thing, and the gun jammed. It's how can I be held responsible? That was another factor in this as a cause to this result. I did what I was supposed to do, but I can't be held responsible, right? And then there's the effort. Let's say he said, okay, I pulled out my gun, I shot it, but let's say there was some doubt in me whether I really should do this. And so when I did it, I was slow about it. I wasn't determined. I kind of aimed, but I was kind of not sure whether I wanted to hit him or not. I didn't have the proper focus because of that. That's another feature in this, right? So he could say, look, I did everything I was supposed to do. And people could look at him and say, yeah, but you didn't really try. We could see that, right? That effort is one of the important factors. And even if all the other factors landed in place, because you didn't give it full effort, it never took place, right? And then finally, there's daivam. You know, let's say that there's certain things like that he didn't know were going to happen, or that he did everything exactly as he thought he should do, and just things that lied beyond his control. I did everything. I took out the gun. I aimed at him. I thought I had him right in, what do they call it? Right in my, the crosshairs. And I fired the gun and the bullet came out. I shot at him 5 times, each time with total determination, total focus, with a good gun, and I just couldn't hit him. Maybe that super soul in that shooter just kept having him move in unusual ways at just the right time. He did everything that he could. Or maybe that shooter will do something that was just totally unpredictable. Or maybe someone will step in front of that bullet just at the wrong time. Or so many other things could be destined to happen that are in God's hands, that weren't in his hands. You understand? So he's saying all these things need to fall in line. Arjuna's out on that battlefield, and he's thinking, this is all on me, right? This is all on me. If I fight, this is how he was talking, right? I will be the cause of all of this if I fight. And Krishna's saying, Arjuna, you are part of a much larger thing here. This way that you're thinking about it is not, you're not thinking about it fully. Arjuna's like, it's all on me, and Krishna's like, no, you are just one thread in a much larger weave. The place, the time, your duties, your skills, destiny itself, all of these have converged in this moment. And your responsibility, Arjuna, is to play your part without the ego ownership, without thinking that I am the doer. Doing the right thing in the current circumstances that have opened up to you. So this isn't just like a lesson for Arjuna. We also walk through life with assumptions about what we can and can't do. Sometimes we inflate our role thinking like everything depends upon me. And at other times we deflate our role, imagining ourselves like helpless, mere victims of circumstance. What can I do? But both of these attitudes are distortions. And Krishna's given like a really balanced vision of how action really works. He shows that we are agents with free will, but we're never acting alone. Circumstances and the instruments and the effort and providence or God's will all converge in every outcome. And when we grasp this truth, and this is real important, when we get that, we can move through this world with determined effort, working wholeheartedly, but without the illusion of ownership. This is really interesting. And this kind of clarity, right? I'm moving, I'm choosing to do the right thing and give it my full effort, but I don't own this action if I do it in this knowledge. This kind of clarity frees us on 2 levels. It frees us on an emotional level, and it frees us on a karmic level, right? When we know these 5 factors of action, then emotionally, we're no longer swinging between pride and despair. I want to put that up there. Pride is like, I am everything in this. And despair in this is like, I am nothing in this, right? We tend to go between these two, one of these two, right? Or maybe we go back and forth, right? This is all because of me, or there's nothing I can do, right? This is an emotional, illusory type of understanding. So when we get this on that emotional level, it's like, I'm part of this, but I'm not everything. I'm meant to play my part, and the results are ultimately not up to me. It's said that actually that last factor, that the providence or God or the Paramatma is the most important factor of the 5. And so I do the best I can. I'm not the cause. I also, it's not that I have nothing to do with it. I play my role. I don't own it. So we can get freed up on that emotional level. And we can also get freed up on the karmic level, where we no longer entangle ourselves in the results. We offer all those results up. And in that offering, we become free. And so that's the idea, right? Try to really understand the world that you're moving through and what you're responsible for and what you're not. Do the best you can under the current circumstance. For that police officer, he's not guilty. If he shot that person and killed them, He's not guilty. Look at the place that he landed into, right? He landed right into a crime scene. He didn't choose to, right? It was the circumstances that put him there. He had to make a choice. He was the person that had the skills. You know, Krishna is saying to Arjuna, if you remember back in the 11th chapter where he showed him, look what's going to happen. Here's the circumstances. All these men are going to die. And I'm asking you to play your role because you are Sabyasachi, because you are such an expert archer that you're called upon to do this. If it wasn't for that, Krishna would be calling upon someone else to do it. Arjuna does not own this. He just plays one part. And with the guidance of Shastra, as we heard about it back in chapter 16, when we're guided by Shastra and guided by wise people, and we have a clear head and our own clear discernment, we can learn to act in this world, understanding the circumstances that we're in, do it with detachment, make it all an offering, and become free. And when we have that emotional freedom and that karmic freedom, that creates a peace of mind, right? That we move through this world with a peace of mind. It's the kind of peace of mind needed for real wisdom to take root and for the mind to settle, right? The mind to become very settled. When the mind is settled again, it can go into deep meditative absorption. And from there, that place of meditation of absorption, when it's focused on the true goal, right? Love for the divine, then divine love can awaken in us and arise in us. And that's going to be the conclusion of the Bhagavad-gītā. But we still have 2 more days before we get there. We'll check in with you tomorrow for day 29 as we continue the 18th chapter. Thank you all so much. Hari Om Tat Sat. Make it all an offering. Thank you. Hari Om.